All right. Welcome, everyone. We have our own Lori Trojan. She was a member of the 2022 Master Gardener class of Douglas County, and she is also a Master Herbalist with a multi-generational family history of cultivating and utilizing herbs for health and nourishment. She's an educator, author of Guide to Growing Herbs, entrepreneur, mother, and grandmother. Lori is the steward of Wild Ivy Herb Farm, a 3-acre labor of love in Lawrence, Kansas, where she raises herbs, produces the Wild Ivy Herb Farm product line, and hosts educational workshops and community gatherings. I'd like to present Lori Trojan.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. And thank you everyone for coming. I am not just delighted to be here, but it is such a pleasure and such an honor to be able to present to Master Gardeners, because I know that we know our stuff. And so this is not just an honor, but a little bit scary. So I will say this, I love comments. I love questions. So feel free to interrupt at any time throughout the presentation with a comment, a personal experience, a question about what I'm talking about. I always feel like personally, as I get older and I'm witnessing a presentation, that by the time it's over, I have already forgotten what my question was. So if something is on your mind, just feel free to jump in. I actually appreciate that in the moment, so do not hesitate. As Mary introduced me, thank you for the lovely introduction. My name is Lori Trojan. I am a Master Gardener from Douglas County. I was in the class of 2020, and I am a Master Herbalist of 30 plus years. In fact, it's probably 40 plus now as we go along, but yes, who wants to admit such a thing? But this is the way. I am the steward of Wild Ivy Herb Farm. I am located in the county between Baldwin and Lawrence, and it is most beautiful 3 acres in the valley. The farm will actually be on the Carr Valley Fall Farm Tour this year. So if you ever had a notion to come out and see me or see the herbs growing, all the things, please, you should come for the farm tour. It should be really fun this year. I received a business degree with a minor in nutrition, which in England includes the study of herbs as medicine. So but that was not my beginnings into the forage of herbs. I do have a multi-generational family history of cultivating and nurturing herbs, and so I was very lucky as a kid to grow up with that. Today we want to talk about planting herbs to attract pollinators. And the interesting thing about this presentation too is that when I was asked to put together this presentation, it had a different title. And I was just calling it Herbs as Pollinators. And like all presentations, you add the information that you know, and then you do more research into things that maybe you don't know quite as well, but you want to seem like you are an expert on. And so in so doing this research, I changed the title twice. And so now I feel like this is a more accurate description. So today we are here to discuss herbs that attract pollinators. And like I say, jump in anytime with a question or a comment. And my question is,
I feel your pain.
oh, thank you. I appreciate that, all that support when it comes to technology. Yay, there it is. All right. So let's get started. In order to better understand why we should choose to plant herbs to attract pollinators, first we should answer the question, well, what is a pollinator, right? So step number 1. A pollinator is anything that helps carry pollen from the male part of a flower, the stamen, to the female part of the same flower, the stigma. The movement of pollen must occur for the plant to become fertilized and produce fruit, seeds, and young plants. I love this diagram. I do. So here is a diagram which has all of the flower parts labeled, particularly the ones I mentioned, the stamen, and of course, the stigma, which are of primary importance when it comes to pollination. If I go too fast, just wave if you want me to hold on a slide so you can look at it closer. So flowers must rely on wind, water, birds, insects, butterflies, bats, and other animals that visit flowers to move pollen. We call animals or insects that transfer pollen from plant to plant or from within one part of the same plant to another, we call them pollinators. Herbs have many uses, and for those of you that know me, you know that herbs are really my passion. I love them and I feel an affinity for them. And it is always fascinating to me, the many uses that they do have. And because they have such a multiplicity of uses, it makes them one of the most valued garden members known today. Their flowers attract pollinators. They have scientifically researched medicinal properties. They are flavorful culinary additions. They have home decorating uses, and they make a beautiful ground cover and look beautiful in landscape. And of course, many of them are also soil improvers. So let's take a detailed look at a few favorite herbs that attract pollinators and are easy to grow and maintain in our zone here. We will also learn about the many additional benefits of each herb that we talk about. And just know that this is just a short list of herbs from which you might choose to grow in your own garden. And there is a resource list at the end of the presentation for you to discover many, 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 many more. So just know these are just a few highlights. And these that we discussed today are all in my own garden. So I am most familiar with those. But I grow over 50 culinary and medicinal herbs in my garden. So these are the highlights of the prettier ones that attract the pollinators most efficiently. So the first herb we will address is comfrey, Symphytum officinale. I have chosen this as our first one because it is my favorite. It is my favorite. I am in relationship with comfrey, and it grows in abundance, which is fantastic. So if you are growing comfrey, you know how it grows. It grows in abundance and continues to become more abundant year after year. So it is one of the most exciting herbs that I know because it does so many different things. If you are not growing comfrey, you know that I'm the one who is always saying, you need to grow this. And here are the reasons why. So comfrey possesses showy purple bell-shaped flowers, which attract pollinators. And they can be planted, and when I say they, any comfrey starts, can be planted within 25 feet of fruit trees, berries, tomatoes, squash, and wildflowers to assist in pollination. Because all of our pollinators are attracted to those bell-shaped flowers, they will come to the comfrey, and while they're there, they will pollinate your other stuff. So I've known many people to plant comfrey at the base of fruit trees because of this. Comfrey brings the nutrients nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus to the surface of the soil. So will it assist in making that soil more fertile for other things that are growing nearby. It is a perennial that grows fast, really fast. It will grow up to 2 feet high, makes a very thick ground cover. Nothing will live underneath it. So it is also helps to control weeds around it. I use comfrey as a green manure mulch. I cut it regularly, probably once a week, once every couple of weeks. I cut it back, chop, 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 throw it in a 5-gallon bucket, add water, let it sit a week. It stinks something horrible and literally smells like green manure. And by the time it smells like that, the comfrey has dissolved. And what is left is this fantastic compost tea. And I then pour it on the garden. And it is extremely useful. So I can't say enough good things about it for that particular use. It is a beautiful landscape addition. So if you decide to use it in your landscape, because the flowers are beautiful, just know that it will take over your landscape and you just have to be prepared to be chopping it back. But it is so resilient, you can chop, 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 and back it will come again. It is medicinally one of the greatest skin healers known to herbalists. I think that's probably, yeah, oh no, not daily. No, 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 not that crazy, but probably every couple of weeks. It doesn't spread as fast, it just grows quickly, right? So like when you are planting mint, as most of you know, I recommend planting it in a bucket and plant the bucket, right? Because it will take over your garden. But comfrey is not so much like that. It will travel, but it takes time to travel, but it just grows big. Mhm. Yeah.
Is the stalk hollow or is it soft? Like, I have borage and it's grown really tall. I know it's
Oh,
hollow.
borage is in the presentation too.
It's-
Yeah.
it's-
No, it doesn't. It's tough as old boots. It really is. Yeah, it is.
Go visit. Go visit our display.
Yes, do. Yes.
So does it begin as a start or seeds?
It has like a tuber rhizome sort of a guy underneath the soil. And as long as you dig that up, then you can just transplant easily. But you can grow from seed, of course, yes. It's hard not, it's almost like no matter what part you'll put in there, it'll grow. That's not true, but it just feels that way, you know, yeah, because it grows so easily. Yeah. Can we go? Maybe. Oh, yay, good job. Okay, yay, Kevin. I'm glad we have a techie here. So, let's move along to our next plant that I've chosen, which is rosemary, Rosmarinus officinalis. Most of you are familiar with rosemary. It's so common. We all probably have a little sprig growing somewhere, right? Here are some things about rosemary that I want you to be familiar with, because while it seems to be such a common herb to grow, there are things about rosemary that I bet will surprise you. So, first of all, rosemary is a woody shrub, much like lavender. It has flowering spikes, much like lavender, and it produces dozens of blooms. And one of the things I hear the most is, why doesn't my lavender or my rosemary continue on until the next season? I lose it every year. And this is common for our zone, but unfortunate, obviously. So what I do to try to keep it for next year is every fall at the end of the season, I take straw and dead leaves. And I pack all around the plant, and I pack them inside the plant to help insulate it from the cold weather. And usually I have pretty good luck with it moving on to next year. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. I have now started planting rosemary around my house, and the heat from the house helps it to stick around. My biggest rosemary plant is massive, and it is next to my house. So if you have a space there, it is useful. So basil, sage, mint family herbs also develop these similar flower clusters. And I will tell you that flying insect pollinators, they expend a lot of energy going from flower to flower. And this type of flower allows them to conserve their energy. So they love these types of plants that have the mini little flowers on the spikes. So if you are looking to expand your pollinator garden, any of these woody shrub type plants are good ones. Rosemary is also a culinary herb, as you know. We find it in the kitchen, has a very distinctive taste and scent. It's used for meat and vegetable dishes, and also used to flavor oils and vinegars. I use rosemary to flavor vinegars in my product line. And it is a beautiful addition to flower arrangements and wreaths. When I pick flowers in the garden for a bouquet in the house, I always pack rosemary long stems and make that part of the bouquet, because every time you walk by, you give it a little, touch, and you have a wonderful fragrance, and it makes a beautiful addition to a cut garden. The active phytochemicals in rosemary have been found to be beneficial to treat inflammation, anxiety, depression. It is recommended for heart health and also for hair loss. And due to its ability to prevent bacterial growth, it's also used as a food preservative. So if you don't have rosemary oil on your shelf, you might think about getting a bottle of that. If you don't mind smelling like rosemary, it's great for your hair. But you will smell like a rosemary bush. So.
I think we're back.
Well done. So let's move on to chives. Allium schenoprasum, and chives are so common, and you just don't think of them as a pollinator, but they are. Beautiful flowers, which you can eat, of course. Chive blossoms are edible and are a beautiful addition to a salad or a stir fry. Chives produce a grass-like foliage with purple, pink, or white blooms that are attractive to pollinators and help to deter pests. So if you are growing chives or wish to, plant them with a plan in mind, somewhere near a plant that attracts pests, and this will be your deterrent. They possess a mild onion-like flavor, I'm sure you know, can be used as a garnish for eggs, meats, pastas, and salad dishes. They are a member of the allium family, along with garlic, onions, and leeks. So they contain vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin C, folate, choline, and carotenoids. Hard to imagine you're getting that much benefit from these little blossoms or the stems. Alliums may support heart health and also maybe anti-cancer. Yes.
Yes. Japanese beetles?
No. No. Wouldn't I just make a fortune if I could tell you that, right? Yes, I've got the answer. I don't. No, I don't have the answer. I know the only thing I know to Japanese beetles is get them, squish them, and drop them. Even somebody told me that if you do that, that every time you squish them, it emits a pheromone and will attract more. I'm like, is there nothing? But yes, that's it.
any herbs that.
That attract
Yes.
Japanese beetles?
Do they attack the?
We are going to talk later in the presentation about marshmallow. I have marshmallow growing in abundance, and the flower is attractive to Japanese beetles. I've not noticed that they are abundant on any other herb. Do I eat the flowers? Yes, I highly recommend it. What do I do with them? So I have thrown them raw into salads. They're just beautiful. So between these chive blossoms and nasturtiums, you can have such a gorgeous salad. And also if I'm doing a stir fry, I will do the whole stir fry, and right before I serve it, I'll throw a handful of these on. I don't actually cook them, I put them on raw. Yeah, and you can put them in anything where you would use onions or garlic, because the flavor is like very complementary to that. So just get creative and do fun stuff, you know, serving an omelet in the morning, put a few of these on it and wow your people. Yes, yes. I love that. Thank you for adding that. Yes, I love it. Moving on. Borage. Someone mentioned borage earlier. Borage is so beautiful. Borago officinalis. The flowers are magnificent, and these fuzzy little guys. I mean, the whole thing about the plant is just so attractive. It's just so fun. There are certain plants that just capture the imagination. Passion flower, wild bergamot, and borage, because they're beautiful, and there are certain things about them that almost look alien, that they are just fun to grow. So blue borage flowers are very popular attractants for flying insects, and they can be used as companion plants as well for squash, tomatoes, and strawberries, which is maybe a little bit of new information if you know about companion planting, that these plants are happy together and it causes them to be more prolific. The leaves can be consumed in small quantities, but in large quantities can be mildly toxic. So if you feel adventurous, you can eat a few leaves. If you don't, that's good too, right? Because who knows what the line is for you, right? Because everyone is different. So for you, it may be 1 leaf good. For you, 3 leaves good. But yes, who wants to experiment with that? But it is edible. The flowers are absolutely edible with little known toxicity. They have a cucumber-like taste, which is really cool. And the scent is a little cucumbery as well. It can be used again as a garnish in salads or a variety of other dishes. I tend to throw edible flowers on just anything I can think of, just because it's so much fun, right? They are high in gamma-linolenic acid, GLA, which is a fatty acid which is integral to skin structure. Borage is anti-inflammatory. It may treat asthma, seizures, respiratory and digestive issues, rheumatoid arthritis, and atopic dermatitis known as eczema. Is it the best one for that? Maybe not. Might it be the best one for you? Maybe. Borage oil is pressed from the seeds and used topically on skin and hair. Yay. I didn't know that. That's where I'm planting my borage next year. Oof, me and tomato hornworms, we got a thing. Okay, that is a golden tip. Thank you. And I will add that to this presentation. I will, because that is really worth knowing. I love it. I love that. Purple cone flower. Who doesn't know this, right? And most of us think of it as a native flower, but did you know it is a herb? And we know this because its Latin name is Echinacea, and most people are familiar with Echinacea, although not everyone realizes purple coneflower is Echinacea, right? And there are 3 varieties of purple coneflower that are highly medicinal. One is angustifolia, the most medicinal properties that we know. Purpurea, second in line, a very close second, and finally pallida. So let's talk just a wee bit about purple coneflower. I'm guessing as master gardeners, most of you know these things, but we'll brush over the tops here. One of the greatest native pollinator herbs for most bees, monarchs, swallowtails, and finches, due to producing great flower heads up to 6 inches in diameter. So even if you're an older butterfly that can't see very well, you can't miss these, right? They're big flowers and very attractive. This is a native herbaceous perennial growing up to 4 feet. They are heat tolerant, drought resistant, deer resistant, and can thrive in poor soil. If you can't grow anything, you can grow this. It's hard to go wrong here. It is a tough son of a gun. It is attractive in floral arrangements. It adds color to your landscaping. And it, of course, is best known medicinally for its immune boosting or immune supporting properties. It's antiseptic and anti-inflammatory. If you are looking to use this medicinally, I recommend a tea or a tincture. And the best part of this to use, the best part is the root, but you can also use flowers and all the aerial parts. One of the questions I usually have is, if you use the root, then don't you lose the plant? So here's what I would say to that. Just dig up part of the root. Don't dig up the entire plant, right? I know, it's like, that just seems so like, oh, well, yeah. But that's always a question I get is, if you dig up the plant to use it, then what? No. Dig up a portion, right? And I will say this also, if you are considering doing that to use the root medicinally, then just know that that root needs to be at least a minimum of 2 years old before those medicinal properties are really developed. So dill, parsley, cilantro, fennel, all beautiful butterfly attractors when they're flowering. These herbs are not just enjoyable to grow for the kitchen, but as pollinator attractors. And I bet you never even thought of that, right? You're growing it because you want to use them in your kitchen. But did you ever think about growing them as pollinator attractors? Well, they are. Yesterday, my fennel was covered in caterpillars that would soon be monarchs. The hard decision as swallowtail. Thanks, everybody. So even I, as a master gardener, we are constantly learning. So thank you for that. And I actually looked up the caterpillar, and it looked very much like a monarch caterpillar. But there you are. There, it's very, very, very similar. But it is a very hard decision to save your fennel or save the butterfly. So yes, that's a difficult decision. You can tell that my expertise is in the herbs and not the caterpillar. Thymus vulgaris. And this is such a beautiful picture of the flower that thyme produces. So thyme is highly aromatic, as we know. It can be found in many forms: lemon thyme, caraway thyme, creeping thyme, many more varieties of thyme. Everyone has medicinal qualities to some degree. It might cluster, it might drape, it might creep, but all are thyme. Thyme flavors meats, vegetables, chicken, and fish, but medicinally, thyme has been utilized for its antiseptic, antimicrobial, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and antispasmodic properties. Marshmallow, Althea. Althea officinalis. And so, yes, Althea is such a beautiful name. When I address my marshmallow, she is Althea to me. So it is a magnificent plant. It is so pretty that if you've never grown it, I recommend it. The flowers are beautiful, but yes, it does attract Japanese beetles. But you can control those somewhat easily because it just seems to want, those little guys seem to want to just be attracted to that one plant there. So it does cluster, the flowers do cluster together. They are white flowers with pink interior. The leaves are what make this such a remarkable herb. The leaves are velvety, soft, and furry. They are, when you touch it, you just want to put it next to your skin. It is that lovely. The bright white petal and the darker anther and stamen of the marshmallow plants are great pollinators and attractants. It has a very soft, sweet scent, a little bit like the marshmallow that we are all familiar with. And medicinally, it is a mucilaginous plant. It has a sap-like substance that the plant produces, often used to make a tea for sore throat and for supporting digestive issues and ulcers because it coats your throat and your stomach. If I have a sore throat, I make a tea of marshmallow and sage. Marshmallow for its mucilaginous properties to coat the throat, and sage for its antibacterial property. So if you're growing both of those, you have a powerful medicinal ally.
When you make your teas, do you have to have the leaf dry or do you?
And here we are on a whole workshop topic. Briefly, I would say yes, always, always dry. Always dry your plant material if you are making a tea. There are very few exceptions, but of course there will be some exception. And I would say if you do not have the time to dry because you are using a herb in an emergency situation, make it from a fresh herb. Don't worry, it will still work. But the reason why we dry herbs to make a tea is because when that hot water hits that dried plant, it will help to break down the cell walls of that plant and release more of the medicinal property, making it a stronger, more useful tea.
Is it true that when you hang upside down, that more of the good stuff ends up? You know, I remember reading that somewhere sometime, that when you hang herbs and flowers upside down, as they dry, the good stuff gets into the flower.
You know, when someone asks me a question that I don't have a lot of experience with, I just always say, it could be. I'm not familiar with that. It could be. How do I dry mine? I hang them. So during the height of the season, my home looks like someone's barn. There's things hanging everywhere. I have learned, though, not to hang your herbs in the utility room because it becomes very humid and your herbs will mildew. So do not use that room of the house. So sometimes I hang them if it's not something that I'm looking to use right away, or it just is more convenient. I also have 2 dehydrators that are running often. And I've known many people to use an oven on a very low temp. And I think that could be recommended. Just keep an eye on them. And some people use the microwave, though I do not. So there's all the things that I just said about marshmallow without turning the slide. And we'll move along. And that brings us to St. John's wort. St. John's wort is an exceptional plant, Hypericum perforatum. I'm growing this now. It is blooming. It is magnificent. And every morning I go out, well, morning after the dew is gone, I go out and I pick the individual flowers. I bring them in. I set them on paper towels to just dry enough so that they are no longer damp. And then I infuse them into oil. And that is how I use St. John's wort. But for those of you, and that is, I use that oil as an anti-inflammatory in my joint oil that I produce because it is a topical oil to help with pain. And it works beautifully as an anti-inflammatory when you infuse it into oil. If you are using it to help with anxiety or depression, you want to dry it thoroughly and make a tea of it.
All right. You've got a nice selection of St. John's wort once again in the front yard, just in front of the extension office. If folks want to see it, and it is blooming.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
If you go out and you find all those blooms gone, just saying, I might have been there.
I know where they went.
That's it.
It's, you're looking at the original native or they're hybrids of the cultivar.
So many. Thank you very much for bringing that up, man. I really appreciate that so much. That needs to be said. So thank you. So one thing I always recommend to everyone, and I did not think to include it in the presentation, but when you think of these things, please just shout it out. So thank you very much. And it is extremely important that when you are going to purchase seeds, plants, etc. for your garden, know the Latin name. The Latin name will get you the correct plant. That's so very important. Because there are so many varieties now, so many GMO varieties as well. You want to be sure that you have the correct one that you are looking for that is the most medicinal, if that is why you are planting that.
So the cultivars kind of lose the juice of the original.
They can. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. So St. John's wort, it is not edible, really, but it is a magnificent herb to grow in the garden. And obviously we can step out and see that, and its beauty is remarkable. The little yellow flowers are quite lovely. It is not something that I would recommend that you would just go and eat the leaves and the, yeah. It does. Yes, which is fantastic. Yes, you get more and more each year. And it is a perennial, and it will grow 5 to 6 feet tall. So be prepared for that. Right now, my St. John's wort plant is about as tall as I am. But it's a great attractant for bees and butterflies. So when I go to pick blossoms, I'm fighting the fellas off and saying, you've had your bit now, it's my turn, and taking the blossoms. The hypericin in the flower is what makes it valuable as an anti-inflammatory. And when you infuse it into an oil, the oil turns red from the hypericin. So you know whether you have a genuine St. John's wort oil, just look at the color. And it also works as an antispasmodic, so for cramping, right? As a tea or tincture, it's best known for its use to alleviate anxiety and depression. Hyssop. Is anyone growing hyssop? Yay, yay. So, okay, Hyssopus officinalis is what we're looking at here. If you're growing it, you know how beautiful it is. So hyssop is actually a member of the mint family. It has flowers that are fragrant. It is fragile and intensely colored. The color is beautiful. And it does attract butterflies, bees, hummingbirds. It is a woody shrub like lavender, like rosemary. It can grow 3 to 4 feet tall. It's well known for flavoring liqueur. So if you are a chartreuse fan, you know that that is true, because that is what that liqueur is based on. Medicinally, hyssop has been known to support the respiratory system. It eliminates parasites, increases circulation, defends against infection. Many people, many herbalists consider this to be an all-around general healer, much like self-heal. So if ever you have an illness or an issue and you're thinking, what should I use for this? And you are unsure, this is a good one to go to because it pretty much covers all the bases. So, Sean, I know you will appreciate this. These are native medicinal herb pollinators. And there are many, and this is just a short list. And when I say there are many, holy cow, there are many. If you go to this website, I don't know if I can actually move the square where my face is, but that website is where you will find an exhaustive list of native pollinators. I'm so afraid to touch it. No, mess it up. There we go. Perfect. So I highly recommend that website. It is awesome. And the reason why I said that Jean would appreciate this is our lovely Jean Klein, who runs the Speakers Bureau for Master Gardeners. When very long ago, I put together a first presentation for Master Gardeners, and I must have had 30 native pollinators on this presentation. And she said, this is great. Could you shorten that up, please? Yeah. So this is the short version. So if you have shade or part shade, I highly recommend wild ginger. It is beautiful. And it is great for stomach upset, cramps, colic, bloodroot. The most unusual, incredible, beautiful herb to grow. Beautiful, these beautiful flowers, so unusual. And when you cut the stem or pull up the root, it literally bleeds red, hence the name. Treats cough, infection, and is often used as a cancer treatment. We have the greater celandine poppy, helps with liver disease and digestion. And spiderwort, which we all know is a fairly common, beautiful native, that lovely blue purple color, is a laxative. So if you've ever thought it's fun to use this as an edible flower, good luck to you. Helps with kidney issues, stomach issues, but stings and bites also. Sun or part sun. So wild bergamot. I have just, it's prolific in the garden and continues again to regenerate and make more and get bigger each year, and a beautiful flower. Helps with colds, kidney issues, headache, eye health. And when I say eye health, you make an infusion of it and pat the water on your eye. Solomon seal. If you're not growing Solomon seal and you have inflammation issues, start growing it. It is one of the best anti-inflammatories that we know. It also strengthens the muscular system and helps with reproductive health. Showy goldenrod. Solidago, as you know, grows really well here. It is an excellent native plant. I try to make a trip to the Flint Hills every year just to harvest goldenrod where it is in abundance. Again, helps with inflammation, may not be the strongest herb that we know for inflammation, but also plays a part, spasms and allergy. So really good to infuse goldenrod into an oil if you suffer from leg cramps, for example. Bee balm, Monarda. I know that many of you must be growing bee balm, and it is great for digestion, inflammation. It is an antimicrobial. Caution. So this is the fun part. This is the part where I do the disclaimer, right? I am not a doctor. I am a herbalist. I make recommendations based upon research, but I'm not your doctor. And what works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. And the important thing to know is that the medicinal properties of these herbs that we've talked about today, and that we will continue to talk about, any formulations of them, any preparations of them, they've not, most of them, been evaluated by the FDA. And they are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. And so I have done my disclaimer.
Question. So you mentioned that you took your initial coursework in England.
Mhm.
Somebody was curious exactly where you were from.
Oh, like where I'm from. So, okay, so here's something that people are constantly asking me, and I have said this many times. I was raised here in the state of Kansas. I grew up in Overland Park. Yes, you didn't know that, did you? But I spent a third of my life in England. My children were born there. I lived there for many, many, many years. And so this accent that you hear, that people are always catching me up on and saying, oh, where are you from? Is just a mess of all the places that I've been. It just is just a mess. And if you were to stand me next to someone who was born and raised in England, you would look at me and go, what is that thing that you, yeah, it is, yes, it's, yes, that. And when I was living there, every day for many, many, many years, people would come to me and say, oh, you're from America. My cousin Susie Q lives in Connecticut. Do you know her? Right? That's what happened to me all the time. Until finally, I decided that I would take it upon myself to try and acquire the accent so that people would stop saying those things to me and try to sound like a native like everyone else. And so that is how this came about, and this is all that's left of it. Yeah. I used to say this all the time. And when my children were little and they would get into trouble, then the accent would be full on, man. But now it's just what's left. Yes. So, yes.
I'm figuring but you were saying one of them was about stings and bites. Is that applied topically or is it all oral?
Topically for stings and bites. Mm-hmm. And one of the greatest, it's not on this list because it is not a really fantastic pollinator. So today we're talking about pollinators. So that's why you see what you do here. But I will tell you, if you're looking for something for stings or bites, plantain. It is not a great pollinator, but if there's anybody in here that does not have that in your garden, you don't know how to identify it, because I'm pretty sure it's there. It's the thing that everybody wants to dig up out of the grass and get rid of or spray for. And I keep going, don't spray for that. You don't know what you have, right? I literally intentionally plant plantain. I seed for it because if you have a sting or a bite, grab a leaf, chew it, stick it on there, and gone. And it takes out the sting and it takes out the pain and the itch. And after a couple of minutes, you take that off of there and you can't even see that you've had a problem.
Even for spider bites.
Spider bites too. Yes, thank you. In fact, the last workshop I gave at the farm, which was a couple of weeks ago, at the end of each workshop, I take people for a tour around so they can see all the herbs, and everything is labeled with its common name and its Latin name so that you can see what that is and what it looks like, and you can wander around and blah, blah. And so while I was doing this tour, I got a bee sting. But I grabbed a comfrey leaf because she's my girl. I grabbed a comfrey leaf, chewed on that, stuck it on there, and somebody went, "You planned that?" And I went, "Yeah, I did." And so, sure I did. But it worked beautifully. And within a couple of minutes, you couldn't even tell that I had been stung. So yes,
This plantain also would replace ivy.
it can be. But I will say this. I am now on what, time number 17, Margaret? Time number 17, maybe, for getting poison ivy at my place. Hence the name, Wild Ivy Herb Farm. It is not because I love ivy. It's because I have so much poison ivy on my property that I have cleared myself. When I took the property, it was just a mess. And so in clearing it, I would get poison ivy time and time again. I still do. But I have not yet found something that is like, oh, wow, perfect. I would recommend jewelweed. It's probably one of the things that most people know best for handling poison ivy. But for me, yeah, even that. Although I do grow jewelweed intentionally to help with that.
Take it when you say you add whatever to oil, using mineral oil, or what oil are you using?
I would encourage all of you to come to the farm for a workshop. I would. I am thrilled to answer these questions, so I don't mean that funny. I'm just saying there are workshops that cover these things in depth that I know you would find fascinating. And so to answer your question, there are so many choices about oils to infuse, but let me just go on so that you have a good answer to that. So if you are infusing a plant material into oil and you are looking to use that for consumption, then there is an olive oil called pomace oil, POMACE. You can get it at Checkers in a gallon. So if you're not familiar with pomace oil, what it is, it's olive oil that's been through several pressings, right? So it's like the cruddy stuff that nobody wants to use because it's not the pretty extra virgin olive oil, but it makes a great oil to infuse herbs in to be able to then use and consume. But you can use extra virgin olive oil if you want to. It just makes such a dark color that you don't get the beautiful color of the herb come through as well. And if you're going to add that oil to something else, then you don't, you know what I mean? Sometimes you want that pretty color and it's still olive oil. If you are infusing a herb into an oil and you want to use that topically, the oil of choice there are so many you could choose from, but babassu, avocado, so many different oils that you can use. I use sweet almond oil. I like it because it's very, very light. It's almost clear. It's like a very light golden color. And when you put it on your skin, it absorbs immediately. So it doesn't leave you greasy feeling. And I really like that.
Could you please repeat, what was the first oil you just mentioned? Babassu?
Avocado and babassu, BABASU, babassu oil. There's so many oils to choose from. It's crazy. And you should feel like experiment and, just go wild, have fun. That's what it's all about. And you'll find something that resonates with you. You know what I mean? Just because I love sweet almond oil doesn't mean that you might love extra virgin olive oil to put on your skin. Yes, it's more oily, but the moisturizing is incredible. So just depending on what you're looking to achieve.
The sweet almond oil, does it
Degrade. So I keep all of my oils that I use, and I use them in quantities. And I keep them all in a cool, dark place. Yes, for me, that is a room where I keep all my inventory and all of my ingredients and it's always dark in there and I keep the shades drawn for that purpose. And I have had oils last for years and be fresh as a daisy. For you, it might be a cabinet that doesn't get the light, whatever it may be. But I do not necessarily recommend keeping your oils in the refrigerator. Refrigerators tend to create damp. If your oil gets wet at all, it will mold.
Humid basement, would that not be ideal?
It is not ideal. Any place that is humid or damp is not ideal. So here we have a list of references for you. If you would like to do more research or you have additional questions, these are just some really good references for you. I think you might find them useful. And I think that's our time, unless you have other questions. Wonderful. So if you are interested, sorry, I was just reminded that I should tell you this. I did not intend to, but I will. So if you are interested in the goings on at Wild Ivy Herb Farm, my passion, you can find me at the Lawrence Farmers Market most Saturdays, unless it's going to rain, in which case I don't show up. But I do large events. So this year you'll find me at the Renaissance Festival. I will be at the Maple Leaf Festival in Baldwin. Those are some things that some events you are more familiar with. But I also have an online store. So the website is just wildivyherbfarm.com.
Bottom one.
It's at the bottom. And so you can go there and find any of my products. And if you are local, then you can come by and pick them up. But it's sort of a porch pickup thing because I live on the farm too. So I'm just because you're picking up a product doesn't mean there's a tour coming. So I always like to say that because sometimes it's a bit disappointing when people come out and say, can we have a tour? And I'm like, I'm in the middle of washing my hair. So yeah, maybe not right now. But if you're local, I'm also happy to deliver to you because I'm always coming into Lawrence for something. So yes, there's that as well. What did I miss? Did I miss anything? Yes.
Thank you so much.